Hello and welcome to my channel Divinely You. My name is Jennifer and today I'm going to be sharing with you foundation tips and tricks. And I also threw in a couple tips and tricks that I use for setting my under eyes as well, so I hope you will stay tuned for that. And before we jump in, I just really quickly wanted to share one thing with you. Now normally I would use this time to share a little quote, but today I just wanted to say that if you're going through something right now, just know that I love you and I care about you, and I know that you are loved, and I hope that you have people around you that make you feel that way and that help you feel supported. And I just want to say that if you feel like you need an extra friend, just reach out and I will do my best to make sure that I take time for you and let you know that I appreciate you. And I just want to say I appreciate all the love and support that I have gotten on my channel so far. It really means the world to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time to be here. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. Jumping right in, we're going to be talking about moisturizer really quick first. Always moisturize your skin. This is going to give you the best results. Plus, you only have one skin your whole life, so you need to take care of it. It's definitely important for your skin that you take care of it as well as you can. And that doesn't mean you have to spend tons and tons of money. I buy my moisturizer from the drugstore. I use this Olay Regenerist as my main moisturizer, and I use this morning and night, and you can do that. And just make sure that you apply your moisturizer onto your neck as well as your face. And then give it a good 5 minutes before you go on to primer and foundation. Now, just a quick word on primer. You don't have to put on primer. If you have great skin texture and you don't have any fine lines or wrinkles to worry about, that's awesome, and congratulations to you. But if you feel like you don't have the best skin texture, and if you have fine lines you want to make disappear or big pores, then looking for primers that are going to help you with that is definitely the way to go. So for me, I have very dry skin, so I typically use this oil right here. This is the Argan Oil Physicians Formula Primer, and this really is my go-to right now, as well as using any type of pore eraser on only the problem areas. And that's a rule to keep in mind as well, that don't put anything on your skin where you don't need it. So all of my face is very dry, and so all of my skin gets the oil primer, but I only have large pores right here, and so I'm only going to keep that to my cheeks. So just keep that in mind. And then with foundations, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you are choosing foundations that are appropriate for your skin type as well. So just keep these things in mind. If you have dry skin like I do, then choose something that says moisturizing, dewy finish, or something that says an oil primer would work just fine for you. If you have oily skin though, make sure you stay away from oil primers and get things that say mattifying. That's the number one thing you're going to want to check for. Moving on to foundation now. I love to put on my foundation by using a sponge. These are the AOA Studio sponges, and they're $1 on Shop Miss A, but you do have to pay shipping, so make sure that you are going to stock up on these if you're going to do this option. But this is a dry sponge and this is a wet sponge. Now, if you can see, this has a lot more give and this is pretty stiff. And this is just not going to give you the finish that you want in your foundation if you use it dry. So make sure that you wet this down really well, get it completely soaked, and then squeeze out all of the water, and then it'll be ready to go. But definitely don't use a dry sponge. A lot of people like their foundation brushes, and that's fine too. So just find what you like and what works for you. And I would say whatever you find works for you and your skin type, go with that. Now let's talk about foundation shades. So the number one mistake I see people making with their foundation is choosing the wrong shade. And this is really difficult because honestly it's hard to get the right shade. So my recommendation would be that if you are someone that needs to stay within budget and get drugstore foundations, that's totally okay. I do that most of the time. because there are so many good drugstore foundations out there. And if you are going to do that, just pick up a couple shades in a good shade range from a brand that has lots of variety, and then just see what works for you. Also, if you want to try a couple different types of foundation and mix those are going to be fine as well. So I have currently been using my Wet n Wild foundation mixed with the Healthy Formula foundation, or sometimes my Milani 2-in-1 foundation, and I have been using those and applying them to my face. So that's what I've been doing, but if you don't find a shade that works for you, mixing is a great option, and it lasts twice as long. So just keep that in mind. Also, if you mix it, I love using the back of my hand, but be careful that you don't try to match it to your hand. Match it to your face and make sure that you are striping that color on your skin. So I'm going to show you that right now. So today I'm going to be using the Wet n Wild foundation, and I'm going to be putting this on my hand first. And then I will go ahead and get my Milani foundation on there. And really quick, I just want to show you, if I were to just go straight in with this, it would be okay, but it is pretty light. So this just isn't ideal. And you just want to like take it and swipe it down there. And you'll see that my neck, it actually does almost perfect, but I just want just a smidge more color because I can bronze up my neck just a little bit, but I don't really want to look totally pale. And then I'm taking my Milani, which my pump broke, so it looks like this right now. And I'm just going to be dabbing this on right there. And this is also pretty close, but it's just a little bit too yellow and slightly dark. But these are really, really close. Both of them are pretty close, but together they're pretty much perfect. So I'm just going to be mixing them together on my hand, and then I will have the shade that is perfect for my skin. So I'm just going like this, and it makes a big gloppy mess. But then I'm going to kind of try and wipe the excess off, and then I'll just use my fingers and just pat a little bit. And you can either do it this way, or you can take your sponge and pick some up off your hand and then go in. It's up to you. But make sure you're not going too crazy and that you start with a little, and then if you need more, you go in with more. Because if you do too much, it's going to be really hard to come back from that. It's just a lot easier to build up and do it that way. And oh boy, I got some in my hair. If this happens to you, just comb it through, or if you really feel like it got greasy, then make sure that you go in with like a dry shampoo and use that. That happened because it was on my hand and I wasn't paying attention, so just don't do that. Also, make sure you avoid getting it in your hairline as much as possible, because if it's obviously in your hairline, it can make a great foundation look like a bad foundation job. So just keep that in mind. And I'm just bouncing this on my skin up and down like this, and I'm not going to be dragging it around my face, because if you drag it around your face, it will turn into a very streaky mess. And then you can use this fine point on the sponge to really get inside those creases, and that way you won't have any areas where you get like a weird line. And then this is what I do if I feel I need more. Just pick that up on my sponge, and then I go back in and just make sure you blend. Blending is the most important thing. And especially since this is the base for your whole face, you just really want to make sure that you do a good job. Which is why I'm not going to speed up this part of the video, even if it is really slow, because I want you to see the time that it really truly does take if you want to have a good foundation base. It does take some time. and a little bit of patience, but that's okay. And then the other thing I really want to point out is make sure that you are taking the foundation just underneath your chin, right here. So I would say that this is a good spot to end your foundation. You don't need to take it all the way down the neck, and you don't want to end it right here because that will look weird. So just taking it right underneath your chin, I think, is the best option. Also, if you are having a hard time perfectly matching your foundation, I would definitely say go just a hair lighter than your foundation, or just a tiny bit darker if you feel like you're just super pale and you want to bronze up your neck a little bit. That is pretty much all I had for my foundation tips and tricks, but one thing I did want to touch on really quick is concealer. So I would take my concealer, and this is the Makeup Revolution concealer, and just take a couple little dots, really is all you need, especially if you're getting older. You don't want to be like most YouTubers where they like take tons and they just go like make a big huge triangle. That is going to be way too much, especially if you are past the age of like 35 or 40. So just make sure that you're doing a minimal amount, because that's all you really need, and you don't want it going into all your fine lines. Which brings me to this tip right here. Make sure when you're going underneath the eye that you are looking up. You really don't want to create more fine lines and wrinkles than you have, and that will keep that from happening. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, and then just make sure that you are smoothing out any kind of line or something that could be here. And then if you have someone with oily skin, you can go ahead and set this with a powder. But if you have dry skin like me, I'm going to teach you what I do, because I have tried over and over again to find different powders, and I have never found anything that didn't make the creasing and wrinkling 10 times worse and just make my skin look super dry and very not cute. Now that I have finished up my makeup, I'm going to be setting my face with this Make It Dewy setting spray. And I am first going to use it to set my under eyes really quickly, so I'm going to spray a little bit in my hand. And then I'm going to be taking my sponge right here and just looking up again and setting that before I do the rest of my face. Again, this is because I am someone that if I put powder under there, it will age me a ton. Most people use setting powder, so if you find that that works for you, that's great. That's what most people do. If you have oily skin, you will more than likely want to do that option. But for me, this is just the thing that I have found that doesn't totally dry out my under eyes. Also, I still recommend a setting spray because it's the one thing that really just takes all the products on your face and just really blends them and melds them together. But if you are someone that has oily skin, make sure you choose a mattifying primer. And I suggest if you have dry skin, you can go for mattifying if you want to, it's up to you. But if you have very dry skin, more than likely you'll want something like this that says dewy, and so that's going to give you a nice dewy finish. And it's just really going to make it look like you have very moisturized skin, which I definitely love the look of. So anyway, let's just get to it, and I will spray my face and then we'll be done. So you'll want to either use your hand or a fan to fan your setting spray. And right now this looks very shiny because of the fact that it is a dewy spray, but trust me, it will dry down and it won't look nearly as shiny, and it'll just really settle everything. Now, just one tip, if you see any spots where you're thinking that it has gotten just a little bit too much, or you see droplets, then just go ahead and take your sponge and lightly dab it on your face, and that'll just help it to press everything together, and it'll help you create your seamless look. So that's the end of this video. I hope you found all of my tips and tricks helpful, and I hope that you're able to get the looks that you want by starting off with a good base. And I'll see you next time. Bye!